Yeah, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna come stay at your place and bring my boyfriend.
And fuck in your bed.
Mhm. Yeah, you mind if we fuck in the loft where you're gonna come home and sleep? Okay, I'll change the sheets.
They didn't change the sheets.
They didn't change the sheets.
Hey, Upper East Siders and all you scandal-loving listeners out there. You just tuned into the Non-Judging Breakfast Pod, where the coffee is strong, the waffles are fresh, and the gossip is hotter than ever. My name is Leaf, and I'm your seasoned Gossip Girl veteran.
And I'm Steve, your newbie, your greenhorn, I don't know, Leaf, what do you call the new kid on the block in Gossip Girl terms?
Well, Steve, we're on to season 2, so I think you're ready to be upgraded to minion status.
Oh, wow. That is joyous now that Blair seems to be getting right back on top. So it's a good time to be moving upward.
Sounds good.
Yeah, take that, Jenny. All right. So here's the deal, folks. We have a whole podcast we're doing here. Here's the deal, folks. Leaf is a Gossip Girl veteran, and I'm diving in for the first time. And we're your dynamic duo, bringing you all the romance, drama, and sometimes questionable fashion choices of this iconic 2007 series.
That's right. Each week we'll be going through one episode at a time, taking a deep dive. We're going to analyze all the parallels, obscure references, and of course the couture catastrophes. And also we're going to take a look at some of the behind-the-scenes gossip and some stories from fandom along the way.
And since we're all about inclusivity here at the Non-Judging Breakfast Pod, there is always room for you at the Non-Judging Breakfast table. So please, grab a cup of coffee or a mimosa or some of Nate and Chuck's special medicine, and let's get into this episode.
By the time you guys are listening to this, we'll probably have already gone on our second trip, but we just, as of this recording, had our first Yak Life trip of the season. So that was fun. We had a new record, 36 paddlers with 35 boats.
That's awesome.
That's exciting. Yeah, we're up on the upper Delaware River, and that was right on the border of New York and Pennsylvania. So one side of the river is New York, one side is Pennsylvania. And there's a couple of friends of the pod there. We had Shannon, who was a guest in episode 17, and I found out my other friend, Will, is actually a listener, so shout-outs to Will.
Oh, all right, nice. Thanks, Will. Shout-out to Will. Yeah, we actually played D&D with some of the other folks that were there. I was really excited because I killed Dan this week in our D&D game, and it's, as a DM, I don't ever really set out to kill people, but it's so satisfying when it happens. And, I had a golem just grab him and then grind the shit out of him, and he got free, and they were all excited when he landed the killing blow and killed the thing, and then it exploded into shrapnel and is basically just eviscerated him. He made his save.
So another thing, after I got back from my trip and I was super tired on Monday, I tried once again to fill a gap in my teen drama knowledge in 90210. I've never gotten past like the 10th episode.
Oh, really? The original?
Yes, the original.
Oh, wow.
And I watched like 3 episodes, and I thank God for Leighton Meester, Penn Badgley, Blake Lively, Ed Westwick, Chase Crawford, Kelly Rutherford, Taylor Momsen, because the acting is so bad. It's so bad on 90210.
I remember when 90210 first aired. I watched the pilot.
Yeah, I did watch like an episode here or there when it was on, and I just never really got into it. I was a little too young for it at the time.
Yeah, I was the exact right age for that show. That was like the early 90s when I was in high school, and really was the target audience for it. I remember my friend and I, every time Kelly would come on screen, we would do the Lenny from Lenny and Squiggy, where he would bite the inside of his hand, because we both thought that she was a pretty lady. And you also had Tori Spelling, who, like, in a sea of bad acting, was the vortex that made everybody else like look better.
Yeah.
She was the Vanessa of that show. And Andrea, who like like, Narc, what are you doing here, Narc? Why is this 40-year-old at this beach pit?
Well, they were all 40.
But she was like legit. They were all in their 20s, and she was in her 30s, and also was the one that really looked like older than the rest of them.
So we are here to talk about Gossip Girl today.
Oh, that's right.
Season 2.
Season 2.
We made it.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled. I'm thrilled we made it. I'm excited to talk about the episode too.
The season premiere is titled Summer Kind of Wonderful.
Yes. Is this our first Corey's reference? It's a Corey movie. Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. I feel like there may have been another one in there. Was there a Lost Boys one or something like that?
Yeah, there's the Lost Weekend, but that wasn't the episode title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this might be the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, the Coreys. I loved this movie.
I've never seen it.
Oh, yeah, this was one of those. I saw it, but then also it would just be on all the time, like one of those random Sunday afternoon movies. So I've seen this movie not in its entirety over and over again, but like in bits and pieces. I've seen it in its entirety several times.
So the original air date was September 1st, 2008. Nothing really special about that date, but yeah.
Yeah.
Television Without Pity episode description reads, awkward doesn't just describe the tortured syntax of the episode title. Serena's playing Nate's beard once again while wailing for Dan to come back and tell her exactly who to be. Blair's coming close to embarrassing herself trying to make Chuck jealous. It's working. Dan once again shows up somewhere awesome, uninvited. And most awkward and fantastically awesome of all, Jenny and Eric get to party with, wait for it, Tinsley Mortimer. Fuck yes, you know I OMFGXOXOU Gossip Girl.
It's a very enthusiastic endorsement for Tinsley Mortimer, who was made fun of in the previous season.
Yes, and her acting was not too great in this.
No, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Robin flipped out though because Robin recognized who she was immediately.
Episode written by Josh Safran. Previous episodes from season 1 were 17 Candles, High Society, and Woman on the Verge.
If I remember correctly, that's BAB, and we both gave the same, like, B pluses, minuses.
Yeah, the first two we were right on the line, B pluses and A, and then you did a B plus and I did a B minus for Woman on the Verge.
Okay, yeah.
I did not write down what Shannon gave that episode.
Oh,
I think it was a B.
Yeah, I think it was.
Directed by J. Miller Tobin, who previously directed Poison Ivy and Blair Bitch Project. Of course, Poison Ivy is the best episode of the season.
Yeah.
And then we actually did this apparently like Blair Bitch Project. You gave it a B plus, I gave it a B.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the one that's
the first episode after the writer's strike.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, right. That
was after, everything came out with Chuck and Nate, and then Blair was, a ruined woman. at 17.
And it was also where Georgina started sending messages to Serena.
Yeah.
So we got our
And we got the big tonal shift there.
Yeah.
But yeah, still a decent episode.
Yeah, it was. Except, it was the last one before she showed up.
So the episode begins, as always, with a Gossip Girl monologue. Unlike the rest of us, sex, lies, and scandal never take a vacation. Instead, they take the Long Island Expressway and head east to the Hamptons. Some would say summer is the busiest season. Think Park Avenue, but with tennis whites and Bain du Soleil. The players change, but the game remains the same. As Gossip Girl monologues, we see Nate getting hot and heavy in a car with a mysterious older woman. We find out that this relationship is secret, and Serena is covering for Nate. Seems like the woman is the one with something to hide.
Unlike the rest of us, sex, lies, and scandal never take a vacation. Instead, they take the Long Island Expressway and head east to the Hamptons. Some would say summer is their busiest season.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Schwartz, way to kick the season off with statutory rape.
Technically, it's legal.
And because this whole scene, you have that intro that you're like,
but yes, it is. Yeah, as we find out later, it is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, and at first you have it was funny because at first it was like, that's not Serena, is it? And then it's like, no, it isn't. And then I was like,
kind of old.
Well,
I mean,
but that's par for the course. That was my thought, was like, she does look older, but like, how many people have been cast in this show that are like,
well, that's the thing with Hollywood. Yeah, you have to be between 20 and like 32, and then you play everything from 15 to 40.
Yeah, exactly. and especially when we were just talking about Andrea from 90210, and like, what's his name that was Jenny's boyfriend at the end?
Asher,
Asher, who looks like he's 25. So to me, it was like, oh yeah, well, this is probably just some teenager
or
that
maybe a college girl or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But then we see Chuck is lounging on the beach, apparently back to his old self. He convinces his 3 companions to go topless on what looks like a public beach, and Chuck gets a blast about Blair coming home from France. Chuck momentarily appears to have heart before returning, being gross. Serena alone walks by, looking disgusted by Chuck as per usual.
He's Chuck Bass. I mean, it was Chuck being everything we've expected him to be. So he was just Chuck being Chuck.
Next, we find a not-so-lonely boy macking with a cute random girl at a bookstore. Dan is preparing for his future job when he changes his name to Joe Goldberg.
I was at a symposium at the 92nd Street Line,
And badly at a bookstore. Where would you? Where we seen that before?
I don't know the reference.
You haven't seen You?
No, I haven't. I do know. I know that he was in it, but no, I have not actually seen You.
No, you really need to watch that.
Okay, well, I'll get on that. It was also just, where did this Dan come from? Who like had no friends, nobody knew him, nobody talked to him. That was the whole funny thing about him, was that he was a nobody, and now he's just like. But again, it was like, you get out of that relationship and then you start opening up. So
I mean, and there is kind of a truth to that in high school.
Yeah.
Once you date the one hot girl, it can open the floodgates.
Yeah, well, and you get that confidence after dating someone for the first time. There's one of two feelings after a breakup, and there's either you get the, wow, that really sucks, and I'm never going to have that again. But then there's also that, no, I'll have something else down the line. And when you're in high school, it's a lot harder to recognize that.
Dan spent the summer interning for a famous author, but he is suffering from writer's block. Before he can go home to work his piece, we see Dan kiss a completely different girl. J'accuse.
Yeah, he's total player now. Like, all right,
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah, he learned from Chuck, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, the exact kind of behavior that he has. Well, of course, Chuck also had other behaviors that upset Dan. So
Yeah, everything's consensual, so
yeah,
he's,
exactly.
he's single. It's free to do what he wants. At Eleanor Waldorf's design, Little J is being put through her paces by Eleanor's second-in-command, Laurel. Laurel scored a best outfit in her lone episode in season 1, courtesy of yours truly. And Jenny tries to put her designs forward, but Laurel just laughs in her face. Look out, Little J. The mean girls in the real world might be worse than the ones in Constance.
Like, so yeah, Laura was a complete asshole. You know, she was really shitty toward Jenny, but also, what the fuck were you thinking? Bringing your designs to like, you're like,
Well, I mean, she's an intern. I mean, I would think that's kind of something an intern would do. You try to learn.
I mean, honestly,
Working for free, you should be getting something out of it.
yeah, I just kind of figure like my notion of unpaid internships like that are like you're sewing hems and like sorting buttons like they had her doing, and you're not here, like you're here to learn, not to get somewhere.
But
You
at
know?
the same time, I think this was pretty close to the same time when the Devil Wears Prada came out. So like the bitch fashionista stereotype was
sure.
all the rage then.
Yeah, and I get that, and I mean they've laced that throughout this from the start. You know, Eleanor is not a pleasant person, you know, or I shouldn't say that, but she is a very in command person when she is in charge. And you know, Laura was shitty. I also just kind of was like, you know, Jenny, you just made a dress at home on a sewing machine, and you expect like somebody who's like really high in the fashion industry to wear it to a major event. I thought that was a little lofty.
This is where, just like with Dan's writing, when we see little snippets of it, we have to suspend disbelief. We have to just accept that Jenny is like this genius designer.
That's fair. That's fair.
So back at the loft, Jenny gets to work on her button assignment, and she and Dan discuss dinner plans. Allison's in town, but thankfully we don't see her. Jenny asks about the big breakup, and then Dan leaves to get food.
Yeah, they're all Allison's at South Pacific, and it's yes. Thank you for not making a cameo, Allison.
But good that they, explain that the kids aren't just living by themselves all summer.
Yeah, Rufus isn't just on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the real reason, they probably just didn't want to pay the actress to come back.
Yeah.
Back at the Hamptons, Serena calls Chuck out about prepping for Blair's return. Serena thinks he has no chance with Blair. Chuck comes back with a burn about Serena being alone and in a fake relationship. Ooh, that's got to sting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also love in this that, well, first of all, Chuck's hair is awful.
Definitely. Oh, I thought it was much better this season.
Oh, I thought it was awful in that scene where it was like all slicked down and like I actually hated that. But I also love that he sees right through Nate and Serena. Like he's and we also know Gossip Girl sees through it too, because Gossip Girl had even said like, yeah, if they're so hot and heavy, why is she always alone and he's always MIA?
Blair arrives in the bus. What WTF? Smiles knowing they had Chuck and as her new boyfriend exits after her. Aw, poor Chucky. Ain't karma a bitch? We know Blair Waldorf is.
Chuck does that like Batman slink off the screen too.
Oh yeah. Oh, this is definitely the season of Batman for Chuck. He
is vengeance.
Like everything he says from now on is pretty much all whispers. The rest of the series, he just whispers, and it's the cover of the British accent, because he did slip up like once or twice in season 1.
Wow, I never actually picked up on it.
So that is the end of the first act, and we move into Act 2. Blair and Serena are poolside discussing Serena's lack of summer romance. Blair is bringing the quips, A hot lifeguard is like a Kleenex. Use once and throw away. And the only thing lamer than dating Dan Humphrey is Morning Dan Humphrey.
Yeah, Robin actually loved the Kleenex analogy. She cracked up at that. She also loved the sitting Shiva reference. When she said the reason you're still sitting Shiva is for Dan Humphrey is that you haven't found somebody to get over him.
Mm-hmm. Chuck walks by and Blair instantly switches gears to talking about her new boyfriend, James. We then find out Chuck has the rando from the finale fired. Sounds like James is coming to family dinner. Blair says she has to pick up something from Nate first. I recognize Blair's scheming face when I see it.
It's funny because I can't help but think that this dude from the season finale just got fired because the message boards were like, no, this dude's stupid. And so it's like, well, shit. I guess Chuck's going to have him fired and he's going to introduce Blair to someone else.
Yep.
Also, a little bit on Leighton Meester and her acting. We talk about it all the time. Blair is really bad at pretending and really bad at being awkward. And to me, it's one of those acting tricks. It's actually a lot harder to do in that kind of moment, to be a good actor and then acting badly.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like a singer trying to sing out of key, or like the scene in The Jerk where Steve Martin can't keep time. To intentionally be offbeat or off time is actually more difficult than actually keeping the rhythm sometimes. Or so like this is just another one of those display of acting chops where her bad acting is actually really good acting.
Yeah. Rufus is on the tour bus talking to Jenny. They are worried about Dan. Rufus tries to encourage Jenny in her fashion career, and Jack Jackson catches a stray in the process. Rufus suggests reaching out to Eric for help getting into the white party.
Yeah. It was also nice that Rufus did a little bit of parenting here. You know, it was nice to see. I felt like it was the old Rufus again, being like the good dad, even from a distance. And like, it's funny because you almost get the sense that they're getting more parenting from him on the road than they are from Allison, who's there.
Who's fucking the neighbor still?
Yeah. Who's like out on a date with her boyfriend that she is still with.
That's like, was he living there with them? That's kind of weird. I don't know.
I had that thought. Like, does he also have his own place? Because like, if I'm Rufus, right, and like, yeah, I'm just gonna come stay at your place and bring my boyfriend
and fuck in your bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mind if we fuck in the loft where you're gonna come home and sleep? Okay, I'll change the sheets.
They didn't change the sheets.
They didn't change the sheets.
Dan walks into a bar to meet with his boss, who proceeds to fire Dan after he continues to make excuses about not writing his story.
I love that Dan gets that taste of the industry too. That both Jenny and Dan, who both have a fantasy of working in these high pressure, type of careers, where Jenny wants to be in the fashion industry and Dan wants to be a writer, and now they're both getting a taste of what that really means. And it is shut up and do your job, and it is do your job or you're not going to have one. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, like the shut up and do your job aspect of Jenny, we know how that plays out, but that is a lot of what the fashion industry is going to be. That's, what internships often are.
And it is, I think it's good setup for what's going to come for the season for both of them. Eric takes a call from Jenny. Eric makes her squirm for a minute before forgiving her and agreeing to help.
I love this. I loved this reconnection. I love how Eric played it. I love how it just felt so true to who Eric is. He's just, And like, you know, I don't have a lot of friends, and so I need every backstabbing line one that I can have. Like he said that, how do you deliver that line with so much love? Is so, it was so great, and I really loved that reconnection.
Although I also did like seeing him with hanging out with Chuck and Nate as well.
Yeah, yeah, I loved Eric's presence in this episode. Yeah, the later scene with them is fantastic.
The lifeguard shows up to pick up Serena in a Camaro. Ew.
Not ironically, an unironic Camaro.
Serena reminds Blair to keep up Nate's cover story that he and Serena are dating. So let's get into this cover story. I don't get it. Are all three of them hanging out for some reason? What? Why do they need this cover story?
Yeah, why? Yeah, like Nate. I get Nate needing a cover story to keep off of the back of, like, he's dating a married woman, but like Serena,
But they're not dating. They're just fucking.
but they're just fucking. Yeah,
They're not together anywhere else.
yeah, yeah. It is just a secret hookup.
So why do they need a cover?
Yeah,
It makes
And-
more sense for Serena. 'Cause
Yeah.
she doesn't want to get hit on constantly right now. 'Cause you know she would
exactly.
be.
She would be. And the fact that only one dude hits on her, and it's this lifeguard who she could not give a shit about. She is so not interested in this date.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I feel like this date was only written in to have them talk about the Nate relationship and the Nate, you know,
Mm.
this whole thing. And I say that because later on they definitely have a continuity error where Serena talks about how great James was at brunch that Serena wasn't at.
I missed that. Speaking of Nate, is once again getting hot and heavy with the older woman from before. How much older and how married is she?
Too old and too married is my note.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, we start to get inklings of this is probably someone that's much older and probably in a relationship.
Yeah.
So guy.
Well, I think at this point I guess they haven't said it out loud yet.
At dinner, Chuck is interrogating Blair's new beau. Eric and Cece call him out, but he responds in typical Chuck fashion. Hey, everybody, Grandma's back. When Chuck sees the heart on James' sleeve, he gets up to leave, clearly distraught. Poor Chucky boy.
No.
Oh.
Chuck has feelings. I actually have two notes on this scene. The first is that the way that Chuck tries to subtly weaponize homophobia when he's like, so how was Harold, and what's his boyfriend's name? Like, really felt like he was trying to let's see how this dude reacts when we bring up, and of course James is like, oh yeah, they were great.
Was he weaponizing? I thought he was just trying to fish to see if he knew the name.
Oh, I saw it as he was trying to fish to see if he would have a reaction to the gay parents. That was how I read that, but I that might just be.
Yeah, I didn't really get that, but it's possible. To me, it was more he was just fishing to see if he was there.
That makes sense.
He was like checking up on Blair's story.
That tracks. The other thing that I want to say about this, and this might be something that you were going to tell me earlier, but I felt throughout this entire episode that Lily was unavailable, and Cece was written for Lily.
Yes.
And
Cece was way out of character.
And Cece is entirely out of character. And just, I had a whole change of heart because I survived cancer, which, okay, I'll take it. But the entire thing, needed Lily.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure this is when she had her kid.
Okay.
But this is the first time of many times throughout the series where she just kind of disappears for real life reasons, usually to do with the kid. Apparently it was a very messy divorce, and the guy lived in England, and
I remember you.
Yeah, it's like a vicious custody battle going on.
And it's such a shame because, man, again, it was written for Lily. You can see it all over the place, and she would have fucking killed it.
Mm-hmm.
And Cece doesn't.
Yeah.
Cece is just not good in this. I have a later note on her, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit her character.
No, not at all. Does she revert back to old Cece later on? Like, is this who she is now? Or does she go back to being an asshole when Lily's around?
She definitely goes back to being an asshole, but she's a little more. She's definitely softened down from her first appearance, but she definitely reverts more. She goes back more to character.
I would assume that it's one of those things that when Lily's there, she goes back to her old character, and when Lily's not, she's written for Lily. But we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that.
Blair follows after him. Looks like we know Blair had to get what Blair had to get from Nate. Chuck is devastated and walks away again. Blair hides her tears. These two are just fucking idiots.
They are. But this fucking scene, the colors, like the color palette of this scene, the green, the green background with the pink across the behind Chuck, and the water behind Blair, and the way that they shot it with the close-ups to really catch their reactions, and then these broad shots of this beautiful outdoor little garden area. I was blown away, and it's a very emotionally powerful scene. Like I got wrapped up in it. It was really good.
Yeah, Ed and Leighton have very good chemistry still.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Back of the table, Blair grabs the heart pin from Jane's sleeve, an obvious plant as he wasn't even aware it was there.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't feel a thing. Neither did I. Oh man.
I love Blair's lines.
Yeah, it was such a good line. And it seems like such a throwaway, but she just fucking stuck the landing so well.
Nate and his lady friend are basking in the afterglow when her husband gets home early and Nate is forced to run out of the house in only underwear. Serena and her date almost hit him as he was crossing the street. Nate is busted.
Whoa.
Nate, honey, you're home.
The hell's his deal?
I have no
She's
idea.
clearly done this before.
Yeah.
She clearly has an escape route.
She way
has
too
a
calm
plan.
about the whole thing.
She was way too calm. Okay, it is a code husband. I'm going to need you to choose either through the window or what was the other option?
Under the bed, I think.
Or the closet or something like that. And you know, she just went into like husband returning protocol mode, and Nate was like, "What the fuck?"
Serena and Blair are walking down the street, and she admits she doesn't even like James and that Chuck ruined her summer.
Mother Chucker, and that Chuck bastard.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
Chuck bastard.
Also, yeah, this is where the scene where Serena compliments James, where Blair calls James boring to Serena, and Serena's like, "Well, at brunch the other day, he was great. He was talking about this, and he said all," and I was like, "Blair, you weren't at brunch. You were on a date that you two already referenced earlier in the scene."
Nate and Chuck are walking down the same street, and Chuck says he is avoiding Blair and the white party and going back to the city early. Aw.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to get Blair right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the two sets of best friends just happen to bump into each other. Serena questions Nate about the affair, while Chuck questions James' backstory. Now Chuck has his scheming face on.
Yeah, I love it. Like, what college does he go? When he and Blair get into the bickering over
Princeton,
what college?
Georgetown, Princeton, Georgetown.
Yeah, it was so great. And then he's like, "Eric, you were there." And then like, okay, we got to see what we can find on him.
Do some research, Junior.
Yeah, and I love how Eric just does. Like, I love how Eric is like,
Oh, what else is he gonna do?
yeah. But like that was his attitude. Like, yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I'll do this.
And yeah, I love at the end of the scene, Chase gives us a little eye roll. Like, you just like, oh my God, what are you doing, Chuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, let him do comedy. Let him
Yeah.
do comedy,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dan is bitching to his dad about getting fired. Rufus knows all about writer's block and the Vanderwoodson woman.
Yeah. Like, oh, it took me 12 years to finish a song.
Uh,
That's not what your kid needs to hear right now, though. Like, wow.
At least it's only been a couple months for him.
Yeah. But just like imagine being like, hey, I'm an aspiring writer. And then your dad, who is like a professional writer of a different sort, is like, yeah, once I had writer's block for 12 years. It's like, shit, am I going to have this for 12 years?
He remembers what uncorked that writer's block for his dad. So he's like, I have an idea. Back at Cece's house, Nate, Chuck, and Eric are playing polo and discussing the holes in James' backstory. Eric has gotten as far as he can, so Chuck calls his personal PI.
He has a PI on speed dial. Yeah, I love Chuck and Eric's relationship, and I just love how Eric is just all in. Like, oh, you want me to do some digging on this random dude? Sure, bro. Like, I'm here for it. And I also love like his, like, you know, they're hanging out with Nate. I love that Nate and Eric are hanging out now because of this. I love Eric having friends, you know?
It is nice to see him doing much better this season.
Yeah.
He did much better than he was in the first season premiere.
Yeah, especially at this point in last season, he was in much worse shape.
Yeah.
So,
So good to see.
yeah.
Serena and Nate have a conversation about his affair, and Nate is fucking dumb. It's pretty sad when Serena has to mansplain to you.
Yeah, I love the Serena and Nate friendship. I think that they are just really sweet together. I love how they interact and how they're just there for each other.
Yeah.
I think it's sweet.
Blair gets text from Chuck announcing that he's coming to the white party after all. She looks like she is smelling a foul odor as she invites James to the white party.
Yeah.
She was about to break up with
Yeah, yeah. And it was funny.
An idea for one more night.
Yeah, and he was also about to confess to her
Yeah.
as well. That like had he just talked, but also had he told her then, I think that would have had a very different impact on where they ended up.
Yeah.
You know?
But also, like, if Blair was going to break up with him now, like, what was her plan for when school started?
Yeah. Yes.
I guess he wanted to, he was keeping him around because Chuck was specifically coming to the party to confront him about lying about Princeton and Georgetown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dan arrives in the Hamptons via the jitney and hops in the nearest cab. Dan's on the scene finally.
Yep. Yeah. Good job, Dan.
And that is the end of Act 2. We move to Act 3. The white party is popping off thanks to some not so clever product placement. So yes, as Josh Schwartz discovered in his second batch of shows, so he did this show and Chuck at the same time. You can get some money for product placement.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Subway on Chuck, and we had vitamin water all over the place here.
Yeah. It was catered by Vitamin Water pretty much.
Like, well, yeah, it's the vitamin water white party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's stacks of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, Laurel, when she was ripping apart Jenny's dress, was like, and that's eggshell. And this party, there is a lot of off-white and eggshell.
Most of it's off white.
Yeah. Like tons of people are wearing things that matched what Jenny was wearing.
Yeah. Jenny arrives with Eric and gets a WTF stare from Laurel.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, bitch, why do you even care if she's there?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you care?
Yeah, I actually think I have that as a note later on too. Like,
Are you
what?
security? Are you
Why-
security?
Yeah, why is this such a big deal to you? And like when she does confront Jenny, which we'll talk about, but like that was my,
She actually went and looked at the list.
yeah,
And
yeah.
checked,
She like did research. Like it took it would upset her so much that she took time out of her enjoyment at this fucking party.
Yeah. Catherine makes a snide comment to Nate, and Nate just asks Serena to get him drunk.
Yeah, she was mad that Nate was there, and she just, are you trying to get me a divorce? And Nate wants to get drunk.
Yep. Why are we doing this story?
Yeah. Thank you.
Cece is getting ready for the party when who knocks on her door? Daniel Humphrey, that's who. Dan helps her put on her pearls. Cece is a changed woman, is now playing Cupid for Stan and Serena.
Yeah, she's all about this relationship that she was absolutely all against for many reasons.
Yeah,
The last time we saw her.
yeah. You didn't want her to stop her from being with Dan because for happiness.
Yeah,
That had nothing to do with her happiness.
yeah, yeah, nothing. Yeah. And again, this whole scene just felt like they needed Lily, and they're
it
like,
was definitely ready for Lily.
oh shit, well, how are we going to have Cece take him to the party? Well, we'll just say that cancer made her nice.
Blair is becoming more and more transparent in her attempts to use James to make Chuck jealous. Even James finally gets the hint and walks away.
Yeah.
Blair, you screwed up. Took it too far.
Yeah, yeah. And again, this is Leighton being great at bad acting, too.
Laurel confronts Jenny about being at the party. She is still being a total bitch to Jenny for no reason. Then Eric sets Jenny up for the alley-oop slam by bringing over socialite Tinsley Mortimer, who absolutely loves Jenny's dress.
Yeah, so Robin gave an audible squeal when Tinsley Mortimer came over. But like we were just saying about Laurel, like, it's one thing to be an asshole at work, right? Where like you are the boss and it is your job and like you are under pressure and like you were more of an asshole than you needed to be, but it was kind of understandable in a situation where you're at work. But you're not at work. Like, what do you give a shit so much that you're wasting your party time to go look at the guest list? And to also be like, and how do you know somebody that would be at this party? It's like, I go to fucking Constance. I go to a fucking rich Upper East Side school. You don't think I don't know anybody at that fucking school? I dated Ashton. What was
Asher.
I dated Asher. What's his name?
Yeah. A little over the top from Laurel.
Yeah.
James calls Blair out for using him. Chuck is sitting in the shadows and steps in as James walks away. Blair is still too hurt to make things work.
You're kind of boring.
Am I? Or are you just too interested in yourself to get to know me? You two deserve each other.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where James just lands a crit on Blair too, where isn't this where he turns to her and is like, was this all about like am I really boring, or were you just so obsessed with yourself that you just didn't take the time to learn anything about me? And it was just like like you could just see her just get stabbed in the gut and just like, oh fuck. And then for Chuck to immediately be like, see, we belong together, you're just like me. It's like, no, I'm not.
Nate and Serena are still talking about the affair. Serena starts making out with Nate to make Catherine jealous. Unfortunately for Serena, Catherine isn't the only one who gets jealous of the ruse. Dan conveniently arrives just in time to witness the guests.
It's so like it's like
So T-drama.
It's like the steamroller it's like the steamroller in Austin Powers, where you see this happening for 30 yards away. It's like, wow, they're gonna start kissing, and then I doubt Dan's gonna see that, even though it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Back from commercial break, Dan is back to judging Serena, but gets some instant karma when the two young ladies he was macking with back in Act 1 show up and call him out right out in the middle of his rant to Serena.
Yeah, he's a real dick, especially when he slut shames her.
Yeah.
When she's like, "I'm surprised," and he's like, "Well, I'm not." And like, I will say the one point where
And I hate how Serena just goes along with it too.
yeah, yeah. The one thing where I understood where Dan was coming from is the point of you can't tell me why, and there's always something you can't tell me, and there's always another reason behind things. But also, like, get over it, Dan. Like shut up about it.
Yeah, stop being a fucking judgmental dick.
Yeah, and stop being a fucking hypocrite.
Yeah.
Like,
So Dan was definitely being a dick.
and Dan,
But I will say those other girls didn't really have much leg to stand on because they were there with other dates too. So it's like clearly it was not a monogamous relationship.
right. And
Did Dan deserve to have them throw their drinks on that nice 70s suit?
yeah, exactly. Well, and also to that point, like, why would Dan be surprised to see Serena and Nate hooking up? Dan knows what's on the Gossip Girl message boards, and if he doesn't, Jenny does.
And maybe he's been not paying attention this summer.
But do you think Jenny wasn't? You think it was never brought up that, hey, it looks like Serena and Nate are dating each other? I feel like it was way too public for Dan not to know.
I feel like Jenny would have not told him if he was purposely being staying out of it. I feel like Jenny would not have said anything.
I don't know, because I feel like Jenny was also really trying to get the info on stuff. You know?
She was, but she likes to get the info. She doesn't give the info.
Yeah, that's true. I just find it difficult to believe. I mean, yes, there are reasons that he wouldn't have known and he wouldn't have seen it, but I just feel like the way that Gossip Girl is used in this, that he should have.
But he is a loner. He's back.
Well, but he wasn't.
But these are not upper. He's hanging out in Brooklyn now with the writer chicks.
Yeah,
the writer groupies.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. In a quiet hallway, Catherine and Nate begin making out. What is with Nate and letting the mother figures walk all over him? I'm sure Dr. Freud would have something to say on this subject. Maybe they are setting up Nate's season 6 storyline to be a tragedy in which he kills his dad and fucks his mom.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Yeah. Well, not really, but
yeah.
I'd read about it. Yeah. Serena's helping Dan wash the vitamin water out of her grandfather's vintage suit. Dan admits he was trying to chuck the pain away this summer. Serena can't resist the Dan in a muscle tank, but right Atwood did it better though.
It's a cute makeup scene, but
is it though?
Hold on. Well, it's cute. Like they're kind of talking and they're cleaning the thing and they're going back and forth. But I was also like, why? Why are they getting back together? And my only guess is that the message boards over the summer were like, why the fuck did you break them up? But why are they getting back together? The breakup was going to bring about new stories and new.
But I feel like the show is also telling us that it's not the right time for them to get back together. It's they're getting back together, but they didn't talk through their issues at all. It's clearly still just a physical attraction thing. It's like I said, when he takes off his shirt, she's like, and she's ready to go.
Yeah. Also, this is where I have the other note that Cece is practically a Muppet. She just looked she reminded me of the Dark Crystal Muppets. The way that she just kind of is, she turned and she had this turn and walked off screen and it was so Muppet-esque, but creepy Muppet-esque, and it was
I like the actress who plays Cece. I just think she was written out of character in this episode.
Yeah, and I think that it made it, and I think that she played the other Cece better. I think she played Cece great. I didn't think she played Lily very well.
Blair apologizes to James. He admits his fake backstory at the same time Chuck is finding out the truth from his PI. James is actually Marcus, a real British lord. This is the most ridiculous scene ever.
So before he confessed, in the earlier thing when he's like, I have a secret I need to tell you too, to Blair, when they were discussing the whole college thing, I turned to Rob and I said, he's a British lord or a prince or some fucking shit like that. Boom.
Yep. But unfortunately, I think his American accent's a little better than his British. The actor is actually American.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But like that change mid-sentence was so ridiculous.
It was.
They're laughing.
It was so bad, and just so like, yeah, this guy's gonna be a fucking prince, isn't he? Or some stupid fucking. And he's, I'm assuming, gonna be around at least for another episode, because the next episode title I did see.
Yes, he's gonna be around for a little bit.
I'm okay with that.
But that is the end of Act 3, so we move into the epilogue. Jenny shocks Laurel with her loyalty. Jenny turned down an offer from Tinsley to continue working at Waldorf Designs.
Yeah, little J takes the high road, but why? Like, I mean, it seemed like you had something that I don't know. I just felt like she didn't really owe anything to Eleanor at this point, because they shit on her.
Yeah.
You know, like, go where you're appreciated and where they actually respect what you're doing.
But I don't really it was part of that Parsons internship program. So
Yeah.
maybe that means something. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it was played off to be like Jenny takes the high road sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Jenny's gonna forgive Laurel, and Laurel's gonna learn
Well, yeah.
a lesson. You know, like, and really, I was I was kind of like, fuck Laurel in this situation.
Chuck admits to Blair that he was scared and begs her to stay with him, but he can't admit those 3 words, 8 letters. Blair gets in the car with Marcus and they drive away.
3 words. 8 letters. Say it, and I'm yours. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear.
This is another one of those, like, just super well shot scenes. The directing and the acting in that, especially like the face acting, the up close shots are they capture just so much. And again, the chemistry between Ed and Leighton, again, just it was a heart-wrenching scene. And when she goes and gets in the car, it's like, you feel for Chuck, even though he fucks up. Like, he's in his bed of his own making, but you feel for him.
Nate gets a note from Catherine as she is leaving with her husband. Looks like the affair is still on.
Yeah, and it's like, meet me at a hotel. So,
Guess that story's still happening too.
yeah. I was like, oh, that was my thought too. Like, this is still gonna go on.
Apparently. Dan is finally writing his story by a beachside campfire as Serena walks up with an unsure look on her face. So I'm not sure if that was intentional or if that was just Blake having gas.
Yeah, I didn't. I had that thought. So the first time I'm watching, I was like, she's gonna turn and walk away, and he's just gonna be sitting there all alone. And why? And then she doesn't, and I'm like, oh, okay, they are gonna get back together, but why? and and
Because they're 17 and they're extremely attracted to each other, which
I
definitely tracks.
And I do believe my instinct is saying that the message board that Josh Schwartz's love affair with the message boards must have played a role somewhat, because I believe you said that at the end of the season at our last episode that the message boards were like, why did they break up? Like, Dan, you idiot. And so I wonder if there was some fan.
Yeah, I guess. We'll see.
But I just feel like a lot of this.
But I mean, do you think they're gonna last?
I feel like they will for a little while anyway. I feel like putting them back together like this. I feel like I give them to at least the mid-season finale, like halfway through the season, if not longer.
Chuck is drinking away his sorrows alone at the bar. Yes, this is the feeling. This is a season of sad Chuck.
Bad Chuck.
Yes. Serena and Dan embrace on the beach as fireworks go off, and Fell in Love Without You by Motion Picture Soundtrack plays for the final time as the screen goes to black.
I should have said, I'm Bass Man. Yeah, I kind of feel like it kind of left this back where we were in season 1.
Yeah, they still have not resolved any of their issues.
Yeah. I felt like there was such resolution at the end of season 1, and there was resolution at the end of season 1, and this shakeup of Dan and Vanessa and Serena and Nate, and I didn't want the Dan and Vanessa thing to happen. Apparently, Vanessa wanted the Dan and Vanessa thing to happen, but then realized that Dan wanted the Dan and whoever in Brooklyn thing to happen, and Vanessa wasn't having it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we heard about Vanessa, but yeah, thankfully she was not on screen.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, we had off-screen Allison and Vanessa, and honestly, ladies, your best performances.
Yes. So besides, so you're saying mid-season breakup for Dan, Serena. What else we got? Chuck and Blair. What's gonna happen with them?
Eventually, Marcus is gonna have to realize that for all that he can give Blair, her heart is somewhere else. Like I feel like that's where that is gonna end up, and so it'll end up with Chuck and Blair again. I still kind of want Vanessa and Nate to happen. If we have to have a Vanessa, I think that
That's definitely where she was at her best.
Yeah. I can tolerate her. I can tolerate Vanessa when Georgina Sparks is around, or when she's with Nate. But they seem to happen at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
but please get rid of Catherine.
Yeah, come on. Like, why are we? And like, I'm maybe that now we're in 2024 and looking back at like the number of like teachers and male high school students, like female teachers, or like where you hear that on the news, and there was the time where the guys would make the jokes of like, oh, ha ha ha, lucky like man if my teacher, whatever. But like, if you really think about that shit, it's traumatizing, and like it really can like have huge fucked up long-term impact on a young kid like that. And I feel like this show doesn't have the weight doesn't have the strength to carry that weight.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like this needs to get wrapped up quickly before it gets creepier and grosser.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. So that is it for our episode. This week in fandom, we went back into the Wayback Machine to take a look at the Television Without Pity forums. We got Dan is still a jackass, but prettier.
Okay, yeah, the hair's a little better.
How old is Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, once again, like Marcus definitely looks like he's at least late 20s. Yeah.
I mean, he was saying he was in college, but then at the end, he's like, "No, I'm not, I don't go to school."
I'm not actually in college. I'm not actually in college.
Yeah.
Mm,
Unsure about Cece's 180, as we talked about. That's kind of odd.
yeah.
Dan and Serena getting back together won't last.
Yeah. I also feel like why get them back together just to break them back up, which is why I said, even if it doesn't last, I think it will at least last until like that mid-season finale. Yeah. Christmas episode or big episode around then.
Can't get enough of Chuck and Blair. As we talked about, they had the
They're
best season of the episode.
Yeah.
And Eric, they're happy. Eric's happy.
Yeah. Like we said, like, it's just,
I love that little guy.
he's such a great guy to root for. And he's such like a lovable character who is also just one of those super sincere kids who doesn't judge people by anything other than what's in front of him.
Mhm.
It's like he's like a smarter Nate,
Yes.
and a more like
Perceptive.
yeah, more perceptive
Empathetic.
and more empathetic. That's the word I'm looking for.
So moving on to grades. It's the first episode of the season, so you get to go first.
All right. Well, I gave this one. I'm gonna actually give it I gave it a B plus, and that was shaky even there. I started at an A and then just kind of started like listing the things that bothered me, and it started dropping the score. There is great directing in this episode. I think the director got great performances out of the cast. I feel like the shot choices and the general like directorial choices were really good. But there was some really predictable and sometimes weird writing. The CC thing is one of the big pieces that I think kind of held the episode back. And again, like I thought it was weird to get Dan and Serena back together, especially if the idea is to get them together just to break them up again.
Yeah.
And especially if they break up over all the same dumb shit. Like why are we? I hate when a season 2 of a show is a season 1 redo.
I mean, I get it, but it definitely makes sense for teenagers to do something like that.
Yeah, it does, but
we don't want to see it.
yeah, but like, yeah, I like, I taught it. I taught middle and high school long enough that like, I recognize the reality of it, and it's boring there too. It's boring in real life too.
So I have very similar thoughts, but I actually went a bit lower. I'm going to give it a C plus.
Cool. Yeah.
Because the directing was okay. The acting was good in some scenes, but it was okay overall. And the writing was just mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So C plus.
I can't argue that. Like, I think that's a fair grade. But and I also kind of felt like, I feel like after the writer's strike, I started getting a taste of what Gossip Girl.
Now, granted, I think this episode, on the positive, it did do some good setup. I think it set up some stuff for the season.
Yeah. Although I think some of the stuff it set up is also sort of like, like some of the things that it does set up are like the Nate thing, and the.
Yeah. Stockwatch. Who do you got going up?
All right, going up. I feel like this was a very up heavy episode.
Oh, really? I was the opposite.
Really, I have most people going up. By the end of this episode, I have most of them going up, actually. I had Blair going up because now she's dating a prince. Dan and Serena going up because they got back together, and good for them, and Dan can write again, and good for them. Jenny going up because she's gotten some of the respect of Laurel, and she got offered a job from Tinsley Mortimer. Marcus, because he landed Blair. Cece for not being a complete and total fucking asshole. for now. Rufus for some solid road parenting. And as much as well, you know what? No, I'm going to take that one out. I'm not going to give Nate an up because Nate can go up.
Yeah, so for me, the only ones I had going up were Eric and Jenny. Eric has some friends now, and Jenny got back with Eric and, pulled one over on her boss and impressed Tinsley Mortimer.
I actually meant to have Eric too. I didn't write it down, but I also had Eric going up because Eric, like you said, was just fucking awesome.
I almost was going to give Dan going up because he got laid a couple times and also got back together with Serena, but then I just realized that was my Dan bias showing through, and he was a total douchebag in this episode, and getting back to Serena is obviously the wrong move here.
That's fair. That's fair.
So who do you got going down?
I had, Chuck. Chuck starting the season in the negative again because he just kind of lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Laurel's stock went down because Laurel was an asshole and got shown up by Little J. Catherine, her stock is going down for being a pedophile. And Mr. Catherine for being married to a pedophile who's cheating on it. That's all we have of his name. We don't know his name,
Yeah.
right?
It would feel more flat.
Yeah, Mr. Catherine.
Is that it?
Yeah.
For me, I had Blair going down because she is with a prince or a lord, but she doesn't really love him. And she's just acting like a fool this whole episode.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck, obviously, he was Mr. Sad Man all episode. He's going way down. Dan, like I said before, he's just a total douche all episode, and he shouldn't be getting back together with Serena now because they have not worked through their issues.
Yeah.
Serena, for the same reason.
Fair.
Marcus, going down because she failed your test, and then you still fucking got with her. What do you think? Catherine, way down.
She said something to me that no one else would ever say to me.
Yeah. Him and Nate need to see the same therapist, I think. They like those domineering women. Catherine, nothing needs to be said there. She's going down.
Well, yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, clearly.
Nate, because he's just back to being exactly where he was in season 1.
Yeah, I should have had Nate going down too if I didn't say that. I originally had him as going up, and I don't know where. I think that I meant to write Eric, but I put Nate.
And then also I have Laurel.
Yeah. Laurel sucked.
Who do you have for your best outfit?
It was that green scene was so impactful to me. I have probably Chuck's suit, but I really listed it as a pair with Chuck and Blair, the two of them, because I felt like that whole color palette.
You want to give them both a half point?
Yeah, I'm going to give both Chuck and Blair a half point because I felt like they both really, I felt like that complete visual is what made those outfits.
Okay. So, the fashion was actually one of the best parts of this episode for me.
Yeah.
There were several great. I liked Blair's floral dress when she was riding the bike. I liked Blair's Marc Jacobs scallop dress at the party. Nate's the look. His party look was the one I would most want to wear myself, with like the relaxed sweater and just the white t-shirt and pants.
I had the thought when I saw him in that outfit, I was like, that's probably like a $500 t-shirt and like a $1,200 sweater.
It looked really comfortable.
It really did. But I had the same thought, like, that's exactly what I would want to wear. And that's probably like,
But in the end, I had to give it to Serena's Oscar de la Renta white dress. Yeah, it's from the 2008 collection. Like a Athena style.
What I thought was really funny when I was watching this the second time, I flashed back to the last episode, the season finale with Much Ado About Nothing, where I gave Lily's dress the nod for the fashion for the best outfit of the week. And you were like, yeah, I just don't really like white dresses that much. And then the next episode, it's like an entire white party.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you're going to have to pick.
Yep.
Although they're, like you said, those other outfits, and like you said, this episode was just very visually appealing, and I felt like they really captured that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's this show, though. I feel like this show does a lot to be visually appealing,
Yeah.
and not just these pretty actors, which there are definitely a lot of pretty actors, but they just really make every scene something to draw your eye and something to stand out.
Anything you want to plug or recommend this week?
I can't think of much other than my Twitter, or not my Twitter, my TikTok and my Instagram, steve.marchon, Marchion. And aside from that, I did start watching the Sympathizer on HBO, and that's a neat show. It's a Vietnam era spy thriller of a North Vietnamese spy who is in America, and it's a really cool story.
I'll try and check it out. For me, I actually finished X-Men 97. Really liked it. Definitely recaptured the feeling of my youth. I was definitely a 90s kid watching the X-Men series.
I love how his will was like a fucking St. James Bible.
Yeah.
When they bring out Xavier's will and it's like this fucking like a tome.
Yeah.
Like who has a bound will?
I just really hope they're gonna go and they're gonna do the Onslaught story, because I know they could never really do that in live action.
Yeah.
But it's not very popular, but I liked it. It was near the end of my comic collecting run. But yeah, it happens after Wolverine gets his adamantium ripped out by Magneto, and then Xavier wipes Magneto's mind, but part of his, like, the evil part of him gets into Xavier and then creates this super being
Nice.
and like destroys the whole Marvel universe.
Again.
Yep. Anyways, you can follow me on Instagram at Hot Capicola. You can follow the podcast at Non-Judging Breakfast Pod on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads. On Twitter, we are at NJB Pod. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for Non-Judging Breakfast Pod. We have a page and a group where you can join the discussion. And we also now have a Reddit. So you can find us r/NJB Pod. And I think we're going to have a Discord soon. So keep your eyes out for that.
Oh, nice. And also, if you are following along and want to share something with us, please send us an email at nonjudgingbreakfastpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to share your thoughts of what we're doing on air. And we'd love to be in touch with you more. Also, if you're watching this and you're enjoying it, or even if you're not enjoying it, please like, follow, and subscribe. And more than anything, please tell a friend and listen together on long car rides. Just spread the word about the Non-Judging Breakfast Pod.
And we will be back next week to talk about Season 2, Episode 2, Never Been Marcus. The Max episode preview reads, Nate learns the downside of an affair with an older woman.
I think it's really funny when the title and the description actually don't match up.
Yeah.
Because clearly something else is going on in this episode.
Also, I used the Max episode descriptions, which were written way after the show came out, so they're not afraid to drop spoilers in them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually tend not to read them. I hear you read them when we're here, but I don't read them when I see the episode titles usually because you can't help but see them.
Well, until next time, you know you love us. XOXO.
Take care.